We are Irish side of the moon. Freedom of information. Personal empowerment. The Irish side of the moon.
I still have a dream.
There are many sources of energy available.
Everything is energy. My God, do we need this war? Free our minds.
Corporations have taken over the world.
Freedom of information. Personal empowerment. The Irish side of the moon.
Hello, you're very welcome once again to the Irish side of the moon. This is Michael Leddy at the microphone. This is our second lunar module, a shorter show, about 20 minutes long, that's recorded and uploaded immediately. Because normally we do longer shows, and normally we wait a while and we schedule them and dispense them one a week. So this is a slightly different way of doing things here at the Irish side of the moon. Matthew Dentith is the guest this time around. Matthew Dentith recently finished his PhD dissertation concerning the epistemology of conspiracy theories. His thesis is called In Defence of Conspiracy Theories. He was awarded the James Randi Educational Foundation Critical Thinking Scholarship in 2007. And he spoke to me before on the Irish side of the moon. We talked about critical thinking, we talked about conspiracy theories, we talked about his work. In the broadest terms, very enjoyable show to do. Always intended to get Matthew back, and now I have a chance with these lunar modules to reach out to him on a semi-regular basis and get his thoughts on a variety of topics. If you check out his website, allembracingepisto.org, that's all followed by a hyphen, allembracingepisto.org, you can see that he covers a variety of topics, everything from I'm just looking down here, Hurricane Sandy, the presidential elections in the US, Kim.com. There's a few podcasts in there because he appears every week on radio in New Zealand. And a few talks, the text of various talks. We're all conspiracy theorists now, or we should be, is the title of one of these, which I read during the week. Very enjoyable. A couple of others as well that are up there. So allembracingepisto.org is a good place to check out more of Matthew's work. I reached out to Matthew on the back of a story about chemtrails, which made a bit of a splash on the internet about 4 weeks ago. Caught my eye, and as it turns out, it also caught Matthew's eye. So sit back and listen to myself and Matthew Dentith on the Irish side of the moon. Breaking into song there for some reason. And I'm on the line right now with Matthew Dentith. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, how are things in the north?
In the north, you make me sound like one of those guys from Game of Thrones. Well, in the north, the frost walkers have come back, and we're. And
winter has come to the north. It's just, this is a terrible, terrible thing.
But let's not talk about that today. Let's continue in the face of such danger. Things in the north are well. It's a crisp morning with me. And it's evening time with you, Matthew.
It is, yes. The dark has come. There are monsters outside. Retreat to bed at some point.
Yes, don't look under the bed either. Great to have you back on the show. I had intended to get you back before this, but I stepped away from the project from Irish side for most of the year to become a star of local theatre.
Yes, I've been following you on the Facebook. You seem to be doing a lot of good work in the theatrical community.
Yes, indeed. You have been following me. You and tens of other people have been following my acting career. And now I've been asked to come back to do the radio show, largely by the patrons of the local theatre who said, just go back and do your radio show, Michael. So I'm back. And the first thing I want to do is get people like yourself and Howard Bloom, etc. back. And now I'm doing these shorter shows because it's a great way to reach out immediately and get people like yourself online straight away and cover more topical stuff. The great thing about you, Matthew, and there are many great things about you, I'm sure your head is swelling as you listen, is that...
I am in beginning as we speak.
Good. The great thing about you is that through your website, through your appearances on radio, there is a wealth of material. You're covering so many topics under the banner of conspiracy theories. I want to talk to you about the whole Swedish chemtrails revelation. This caught my eye back about a month ago. I had put a post up myself asking who was this lady, etc., and because that was what was interesting to me. So can you tell me a little bit about this revelation? Tell me about chemtrails and then tell me about the revelation. Bring me up to speed on these topics, please, Matthew.
Well, right, so chemtrails is basically a sort of umbrella term for a variety of phenomena which are all taken to be conspiratorial of some particular extent. There are people who watch the skies and notice what appear to be unusual cloud formations, which in many cases either look like unusual clouds of unusual colour and shape, or they look like contrails, the vapour trails left behind by jet engines, in locations where no planes seem to have come by. Now, this on its own seems mysterious when you have unusual clouds or you have contrails where contrails should not be. But then there's a related factor here, which is that many of the people who spot these so-called chemtrails claim that they suffer deleterious health effects at the same time. And so there's a variety of different theories going about. There's a sort of rather mundane theory that maybe there's some additive in jet fuel which is causing ill health to the population, to the rather extreme claim that actually this is part of the population control being orchestrated by the New World Order, where they're putting in ingredients to weaken or make humans more docile and thus make it easier for control to be centralized in some kind of New World Order UN-related plot.
Okay. And yeah, it's something that I don't think we really dealt with it directly on the Irish Side of the Moon, but it has been alluded to by a couple of guests. And it's something that interests me. I mean, it's an interesting topic, and one of the things about it, it has come up in just private discussions, myself and Gabriel, myself and Shane, different times over the years. It's come up in conversation. And from our perspective, particularly mine, it's always interesting that as of yet, there seems to be no hard and fast evidence of something like this. And there's never been any sort of official admission or declaration. There's a lot of guesswork, a lot of hypothesis, a lot of people saying it's happening, but I've never really seen anything to back up any of that. And from my point of view and the way my mind works, that's the key thing about this issue for me. So about a month ago, somebody appeared to step forward.
Yes, this is actually quite interesting. So around about mid to late October of this year, there was a news article which I believe started at naturalnews.com. I think that's actually the origin of the English text of what we're about to talk about, which claimed that one of the leaders of the environmental or Green Party in Sweden, this woman by the name of Pernilla Hagberg, had stepped forward and said, look, not only are the CIA responsible for chemtrails, but the Swedish government knows about this and is also complicit with the dissemination of chemtrails in Sweden.
Wow.
Which is like a reveal.
Yes, and I saw that same article back in October, and I didn't link to it because I went back through the Facebook to see had I linked to it. What I had actually done was I'd seen it, and I'd seen that it was being referred to on a few different forums, because the nature of what we do with the Irish Side Project is to keep an eye on these things, so always interested in seeing what's out there.
Very conspiratorial, keeping an eye on all the...
Well,
you're not part of the cabal there, are you, Michael?
Don't start rumours like that. Although it may it may help my street cred if you did, so I don't know. But what I did straight away was and this in a non-filthy, non-double entendre way, I Googled this lady to see who she was. That was the first thing that occurred to me, because I could see people apparently flocking around her and her declaration as if it was a big revelation and a big admission and etc. But I really couldn't find anything about her, so I put a post up on the Facebook. Who is this lady? Read the chemtrails. Can anybody enlighten me? And that was the thing that interested me. But I got the impression that I was the only one that was curious about that until I heard you talking about it. Because you also did a little bit of research into who this lady was, or was
yes. Yeah, because, I mean, as you will have found out when you did your Google search, and I also engaged in a non-filthy Google search about Pernilla Hagberg, you really only get hit to the news story. And you start searching for Pernilla Hagberg, Green Party, Environmental Party, all you get are references to the news story. And I found that quite interesting, because if this was really going to be a major revelation, you'd expect there to have been at least some local news in Sweden, Swedish news reporting about this particular issue. So I did the next best thing. I went to the Swedish parliamentary website, looked up the environmental party, managed to use my very crude Google search to work out what the Swedish was for the party listing, and actually looked at who are the current members of the environmental party, and discovered that her name does not appear as a politician, let alone an associate of the environmental party in Sweden.
Ooh, plot thickens.
So I think what has happened is that there was a news report about an environmentalist by the name of Pernilla Hagberg, who has made a claim that she thinks the Swedish government and the CIA are complicit with chemtrails. And what's happened is that someone has seen the report in a bad English translation and assumed that when they talked about a Swedish politician, they thought they were referring to a Swedish member of parliament, as opposed to what she appears to be, which is a political activist. So there's a confusion here between basically non-Swedish speakers assuming she's got a higher rank than she actually has in the political system in Sweden.
Brilliant bit of detective work. Brilliant. And essentially, what you then describe is somebody expressing their opinion, which is fine, and then some, I won't say bad journalism, but certainly some questionable journalism, translation work, giving the impression that she was not who she appeared to be, and then the story became something other than it actually was.
Yeah, and I mean, what struck me about this was that this was a very simple thing to research. It didn't require you to go to a library, it didn't require you to do much more work than 5 seconds of internet searching, and you would discover that the story was making a much bolder claim than actually was supported by the available evidence. Essentially, the story is someone has said that they think the Swedish government's complicit with chemtrails with the CIA. Now, if you or I made that particular claim, people might go, well, that's interesting. What kind of resources do you have to actually support that claim?
Yep.
But because they then made the claim that she was associated with the Green Party, and they made the inference that she was an MP in the Green Party, suddenly this became a major revelation, as opposed to a random person on the internet has made the following claim. Let's take it seriously.
Yes, and this leads me to the two questions that are kind of the hub of why this is an interesting story for me now, in retrospect, and why I wanted to reach out to you and get your take on all of this. The first part of the question is this, and you are the man to ask in terms of conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists. If you are a conspiracy theorist, and this is one of the things that you believe, and you're looking for proof, looking for evidence, looking for the smoking gun, as it was, is there a tendency in that community to just jump at the merest hint? Were there people just immediately jumping on this and saying, aha, this is it, I've been saying this for a long time and now I have evidence, before they'd done any investigative background checking into it, and just taking and running with it? Did that seem to happen on the internet, and is that part of the makeup of some, not all, of the people who would be, as you would say, or as I would say, conspiracy theorists?
Yes, and I think what's interesting about this is actually not something which is unique to chemtrail enthusiasts or indeed conspiracy theorists in general. This is a basic human tendency we all share. If we hold a sort of dogmatic view or an article of faith about some particular issue, whether it be the existence of chemtrails, the existence of alien life forms on Earth, denying climate change, being pro-creationism or anti-abortion, as soon as someone makes some particular claim which supports our view, we like to latch onto it. And often the problem here is we don't do sufficient work to check, actually, are they the appropriate expert to referring to, and what are they basing their particular view upon? So yeah, we latch on to these things.
Yep.
We don't necessarily actually go, is this the right move to make in the argument we are trying to advance?
Brilliant, and I'm nodding because it's so true, and it's a fantastic observation, and I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, I can take an obvious example. Take a movie like The Amazing Spider-Man, which I didn't like, and got into many heated debates with my comic book loving friends.
Oh yes.
When I would find, if I was on Rotten Tomatoes and I would find a review which matched my own, it would be not unusual for me to maybe link to that on a little Facebook group that a group of us have where we talk about these things, or to send it on to somebody as a message and saying, aha, because look, Peter Blogworth of the New Orleans Car Dealer Monthly also says blah, blah, and blah. As you say, not really looking into the fact that maybe this is the first review he's ever written, or maybe normally he's saying that things like the Chuck Norris oeuvre are overrated when it comes to Oscar time. So yeah, we just latch on because is it because it's a vindication? Is it because it's the like-minded person we recognize somebody that we are perceiving as being an authority as having the same values as ourselves?
Well, I think it's in part there. I think it's also in part we are social. As people describe us, we are social apes. We are part of the hominid family. We've got this kind of these complex social networks. We like to actually be in agreement with people whenever possible. So, I mean, you notice this with your friends to a large extent. Most of the friends you make are people who largely agree with you on matters of deep principle. And the people you don't like tend to be the kind of people that disagree with you on those kind of fundamental matters. Which means you get these ridiculous situations where a bunch of friends will go to the pub and they'll be having a conversation, and then halfway through the night you'll suddenly go, actually, we're talking a load of rubbish, because all we're doing is patting each other on the back about the fact we all agree about something, and it turns out none of us know the single thing about quantum mechanics after all.
Yes, I think when you come, hopefully you come to visit me in this part of the world. We've talked about it in the past, and we come out for a few pints, and I think you'll find that that's pretty much my social group as well. You've described us perfectly. You'll fit in.
Excellent. You know nothing about quantum mechanics.
Absolutely. The first question I've asked you, the second one really is the other thing that kind of interests me about this story, and it's just a direct extension of what we just talked about. In that situation, right, where you are somebody who passionately believes that this is happening, that the chemtrails are real, but you are very critically minded in terms of looking for evidence, and you recognize, you read this and you think, same as you did, I did, gosh, this really doesn't seem to amount to very much. If you're in that position, is it a dangerous position to be in as regards going onto forums and saying, look, I do believe the same thing as all you guys, and I know this is happening for a fact, but let's look at this lady. I mean, she doesn't seem to have any sort of blah, 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 blah. Is there a terrible danger of being in that position where you could get shot down, friendly fire as it was, by those people that you actually agree with? Because you're all waiting for evidence of this. You're very acutely aware of the fact that there's no hardcore evidence, but you know enough of the big picture to be cynical, and you think to yourself, well, this sounds like something they are doing, and yes, I'm sure there's evidence out there, but this isn't it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is actually quite a problematic thing. So in my critical thinking teaching that I do, we do a really big spiel about the fact that, you know, what everyone should want is a quality debate. So whenever possible, we should play the role of devil's advocate and go, look, I agree with you in principle, but do we actually have a decent argument towards this position, or are we just engaging in mutual back-patting? But the problem is, as soon as you start being the devil's advocate, people become suspicious. They want to know, well, do you really agree with us, or are you just playing along? And in a lot of conspiracy theory dialectic, if you then start questioning what's taken to be the standard orthodoxy of your particular group, people accuse you of engaging in disinformation, they'll accuse you of being a plant for some other particular group, or they'll accuse you of trolling, so just trying to cause trouble. So there is often a tendency to want to conform to the norm. And I think to a large extent, this is why you didn't get much in the way of critical analysis of this particular story. It's very easy to research this and go, hold on, she doesn't have quite the credentials she's made out to be. But if you're a member of that community that is of the firm belief that chemtrails are clear and present danger, and then the one bit of proof that seems to be convincing people around the world there is something to the story is the one thing you decide to attack or call into question, then suddenly you are risking your position in your community.
Yes. Yep.
And we just have a tendency at that point to become quiet, go stum.
Well, that is a scary thing. I mean, you said it, we are very social animals, and we all feel the pains of that scenario, the idea of doing something that will alienate you from your peer group. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's scary. So, yeah, it's a situation I can definitely empathise with, as put across by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it was interesting that no one really, apart from, say, you and me, actually seemed to spend any time going, really, what about this particular story? So I did another search this evening to have a look to see if there was any additional stories or any additional critiques. And basically the only thing I could find is that there is a Facebook page now devoted to Pernilla Hagberg.
Oh.
And the Facebook page, interestingly enough, just refers to her as a Green Party activist. So it no longer says that she's a politician who's part of the government. It just says she's a Green Party member in Sweden who is being an activist about this particular issue. So at least someone who's possibly involved and knows her has gone, look, we can't present her as being this thing here, a member of parliament who would have, say, special access to what's going on. So they've sort of reduced that claim down. But there's really not much else there to show that people have actually investigated this or engaged their critical thinking faculties when going, should we actually take this claim as gospel?
Fair enough, fair enough. That's I think that's pretty much where we come to agreement on that. And I think that's pretty much the end of the story as it was of this particular lady for now. It'll just become one of those things that fades away, because I don't think it's getting any more referencing or anything else. But for that brief shining moment, it's 15 minutes of fame. It was a very interesting look at the whole chemtrails idea and story. I'm looking at your website here, allembracingapisto.org. Again, we will link people back to that. And I'm just, as you were speaking there, I was listening, but I was also furiously going through another one of the pieces that you had written that I had read through, and I thought it was brilliantly summing up kind of what you just said there a moment ago. It's from the, I'll tell you which piece I'm going back to. I'm going back to the We're All Conspiracy Theorists Now.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
my recent talk.
And at the end of one of the paragraphs you have here, and I think I loved it actually, I meant to encapsulate it the other day and put it up on the website as a quote, but I forgot to do that, so I'm going to do it now instead. And it just basically says, once again, if a particular conspiracy theory is any good, it will be based upon a good argument, and if we just go around ignoring arguments, then we're not really engaging with the world at all. I loved that. I love that idea, and I think it's a big part of what we're doing here. Because, again, the chemtrails is a perfect example. I think it's well worth reading up on it, well worth thinking about it and asking questions about it, and admitting that there really isn't any, to my knowledge, any evidence out there yet to indicate that it's true. But yet is the key word. Who knows what story will break on naturalnews.com next week? That will happen.
Precisely. And if there's a good argument towards the claim that chemtrails are reality and they have deleterious health effects or are part of the New World Order plot to make humans docile, we need to appraise that argument and go, is it any good?
Matthew Dentith, a great pleasure to have you back on the Irish Side of the Moon.
Let's just talk with you, Michael.
And I'm going to reach out to you very soon again, and the wealth of material that you cover, it's just an endless, it's like a treasure trove. Going to your website, All Embracing Apisto, there's a hyphen between all and embracing, I'll put the link in. It's a real treasure trove of A, good stories, and B, good analysis of those stories. Matthew, take care of yourself, and we'll talk again very, very soon.
I hope so.
that was myself and Matthew Dentith. We were on the Irish side of the moon. You have been on the Irish side of the moon. We're all on the Irish side of the moon. The name of the website is The Irish Side of the Moon. Go to theirishsideofthemoon.ie. You can check out the archive, and if you like us, then like us and come to Facebook, and we're on Twitter and we're on YouTube, and share the links around and get involved in the discussion. You all come back now. You hear?
We are Irish Side of the Moon. Freedom of information, personal empowerment. The Irish Side of the Moon.
I still have a dream.
This is just a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love.
Freedom of information, personal empowerment. The Irish Side of the Moon.